How to migrate Active Directory 2008 R2 to Active Directory 2012 R2. Don't be alarmed, it's not so hard. Hello friends, this is Nick from NOB Solutions, and today I'm going to perform an Active Directory migration from 2008 R2 server to another server which I've already installed, which is 2012 R2. So in order for me to proceed, I've made few prerequisites that I'm not going to demonstrate. If you are interested in how to promote the domain controller, you can always check my channel. There are a lot of videos how to do this. But from the 2008 R2 site, I've already installed Active Directory domain services. And what I did is I've went ahead and created few records so we can test out and confirm that we have a successful migration afterwards and the successful replication of all my users and domain computers and so on. So what I did is I've created another organizational unit in my Active Directory users and computers, and in there I have my three departments, the IT department, marketing and sales, and in there I have some users that I've created, and of course in my marketing department I have Gina and Tommy, which are really big fans of John Bon Jovi and mostly the It's My Life song. So the next thing that I want to show you before I start is the DNS, because what I did is I've went ahead and created some custom records that I have just to confirm that after the migration is done I still have the records available for me. So I created a reverse lookup zone as well, and I just want to verify that this is successfully replicated and working on my second server. Now that we have the prerequisites covered mostly, I will switch to my second server that is currently not joined to the domain. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to join the computer to the NOB Lab domain. I will use my credentials. After that, what are we going to do is we are going to insert the 2008 R2 CD into my 2008 R2 domain controller, and we are going to perform a forest preparation so we can present the new 2012 R2 domain controller. And this is basically required because, as you know, a lot of features are being developed by Microsoft. So I'm going to click OK to this and restart now. So after the server restarts, I'm going to log into it once again. But as I was saying, there are a lot of new features, a lot of cool stuff developed by Microsoft, and the Active Directory features were not available back then when the 2008 edition of Windows was out. So what we need to do is we need to extend the schema so that it can contain the new features and they can be available on a later state. So before I go ahead and extend the schema, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a registry, and I just want to show you what I'm talking about. If I go to local machine and then system and then current control set, services, go down to NTDS, there it is, and go down to parameters, I will be able to find the key called schema version, and the schema version, as you can see now, is 47, and if I open that in hex it's 2F, in decimal it's 47. So this is my current schema version, and I want to increase that schema version to the 2012 R2 1, which I'm going to proceed right now. I'm going to mount the CD, the 2012 R2 CD, and I'm going to proceed with expanding the schema. Now that I have the Windows 2012 CD into my 2008 machine, I'm going to open command prompt as administrator, and I'm going to switch to my CD, which is currently located under D drive. So let's change that, and I will go to directory support and then directory AD prep. So in this directory, the command that I need to execute in order for me to prepare my forest for the 2012 domain controller is AD prep forest prep, and press enter. Okay, and it's showing that currently the user that I'm logged in with is not a member of the enterprise admins group and schema admins group, which is a good example of what are the groups that you need to be a member of in order for you to execute this or extend the schema. So you need to be an enterprise admin and a schema admin. I'm pretty sure that my account is in both groups, but just in case I will check it. Enterprise admin and schema admin. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to restart my domain controller, and we'll wait for it to boot up so it can refresh the settings, and we'll try to execute the command once again. So let's reboot it. Okay. And I will pause the video and we'll resume when the domain controller is up and running once again. Okay, now that my domain controller is up and running once again, I'm going to try to execute the same command. Of course, run the command prompt as administrator, go to D drive, and then support, and then AD prep, and write down AD prep forest prep. Okay, and it will ask me if I'm sure that I want to execute this, and you will see that there is a warning message. If all domain controllers in the forest run Windows Server 2003 or later, and you want to upgrade the schema, confirm by typing C and then press enter to continue. Otherwise, type any other key or press enter to quit. So you can see that this operation cannot be reversed after it completes. So you need to be really certain that you need to execute this. As this is in a test environment, I really recommend for you to try and test it first. For example, if you have a test environment, you can try upgrading or migrating first in the test environment, and then doing that in the production environment. So I'm going to press enter, and you can see right away that the current schema version is 47, and it's going to upgrade the schema to version 69. So it's going to take some time to upgrade the schema, but I will wait for it to finish up, and we'll resume the video after the process is fully done. Okay, now that the process finished successfully, it took around 2 minutes to fully finish, so it's not so bad. I'm going to open regedit once again. Yes. And if I check the schema version, now instead of 47, it's already a 69 schema version. So that's good. I have my schema upgraded. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to promote my 2012 domain controller. And of course, there are a few prerequisites that you need to take care of first. You need to take care of the name and the IP address, because you don't want your domain controller to be with a dynamic assigned IP address. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the Active Directory domain services on this server. Okay. And I'm going to pause the video until the process is fully done. and we are going to proceed with promoting the domain controller. Now that the installation finished successfully, I had a small hiccup there where it didn't pick up my proper permissions for my account, so I had to reboot the server really fast. But now everything is working fine, so I'm going to promote this server to a domain controller, and I'm going to promote it to an existing domain. Okay, I will leave it a DNS server and a global catalog, and I will leave it in my default first site name. This is the only one that I have. So I'm going to set up a directory services restore mode password. As you know, this is really important and you need to remember this. And I'm going to leave this like this. And I'm going to leave it to replicate from any domain controller. I have only one in my domain, so it's not that bad. I'm going to leave the defaults, and it's saying that in order for me to join it, you can see this is another method that will allow you to join a 2012 domain controller to your domain, and it's going to automatically check and prepare your domain, because if you remember, we prepared the forest, but now it's going to prepare the domain. Of course, you can use the AD prep domain prep to prepare the domain as well, but I'm going to leave it here so the wizard can finish this process for me. So if I scroll down a bit, let's see, DNS server read only. Let me view the script and confirm what is it going to do. So it's going to install the domain controller, and yep, I'm not able to see any PowerShell commands, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to perform this for me. So let's confirm that the prerequisite check will go through without any major concerns, because if you remember from promoting other domain controllers 2012, there are a few things that will show up as an error, but at the end it will say that all prerequisite checks passed successfully. So I'm going to install and promote this server as a domain controller. I'm going to pause the video and wait for the process to finish. Okay, after the promotion process is finished, the domain controller restarted, and now that we are back up and running, I'm going to perform some checks. So firstly, I'm going to open the Active Directory users and computers, and I'm going to verify that the replication finished successfully, and I can see my users under my organizational unit, and I'm currently connected to my 2012 domain controller. And please note that depending on your bandwidth, depending on where you are promoting the domain controller, it can take some time to replicate the changes. So it's always a good idea when you promote it to leave it to finish the initial replication and finish replicating everything that is needed before you go ahead and demote the old domain controller. So the next step that I'm going to check is the DNS, and if I open my forward lookup zone, I can see that it's available. I can see the records, I can see my reverse zone alongside with the PTR records as well, so it looks good. And the next thing that you want to check is the Active Directory sites and services. So let's see if my domain controllers are properly propagated to the sites and services console, and if I have the connection objects available and if they are working fine. So if I go to my default first site name, I will see that I have my two domain controllers, and under the NTDS settings I can see that I have connection objects are automatically generated for my two domain controllers. So this is the initial check. It's always a good idea to, as I said, leave the domain controllers overnight so they can talk to each other and synchronize everything properly. For example, if you have a lot of group policies, you will need to leave it so that the sysvol replication can occur properly and there are no errors. And what you can do during that process, or if you decide to it's time to demote the domain controller, you can always open the event viewer, and under the server roles you can always double check the Active Directory domain services for any errors showing that there are problems with the sysvol replication or anything else that could be preventing the proper replication between the two DCs. Of course, you can check the DNS server for any errors as well. So in general, the event viewer is a really good way for you to determine if there are any problems that needs to be resolved before you go ahead and demote the first DC. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to open a PowerShell as administrator, but of course you can do this in command prompt as well, and I'm going to check the replication to see if it's successful. So okay, and I can see that the replication occurred a few minutes ago and it's so successful. It's able to replicate everything. Another good method is DCDAC. You can check and see if your new domain controller properly passes all the tests that are required for the domain controller to advertise properly and to work after you decommission the first one. So you can see that I have few events showing that there is no DNS resolution, but that external DNS resolution, which is okay because I don't have an external gateway currently configured. So it's all good. I can see that pretty much all the tests passed successfully, and I'm not able to see any critical errors when I perform my checks. Of course, you can be more specific. You can go ahead, search on TechNet and find a lot of information how to properly check if a domain controller is working fine. Of course, what you can do is after we migrate the FSMO roles, you can try to shut down the first domain controller, but you need to be careful how you configure the DHCP. For example, if you configure the DHCP to provide IP addresses that, for example, give the DNS to the first domain controller, your users won't be able to browse through the internet. They could possibly have authentication problems, so you need to pre-configure this before you shut down the first one. But this is a good step for you to confirm when you configure everything, when you change the IPs, to confirm that the first domain controller is not needed to be online anymore. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the FSMO roles from my first domain controller to my second one. So I'm going to start by opening another PowerShell window. You can do this with CMD as administrator, of course, and perform the command netdom query FSMO. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is going to query and will return where exactly are the FSMO roles at the moment, and they should be all on my first domain controller. So let's wait and see. Okay, and they are all on my NLBDC1. If you are confused with my current configuration, I have my NLBDC1, which is my 2008 R2, and NLBDC01, which is my 2012. I did this because after I decommissioned this one controller, I want to have a proper naming convention, so this is an administrator thing, let's say. So let's open users and computers and right click on nlblab.com and go to operations masters. So now I have my RIT master on my DC1 and I want to change it to DC01, so I'm going to click change, yes, and it transferred successfully. So next one is the PDC, change, okay, and the infrastructure. Okay, So these were the operations, the domain FISMO roles. So they are already transferred to my new domain controller. So the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to open Active Directory Domains and Trusts and right click on the on the Active Directory Domains and Trusts and click Operation Master. And here is the first forest-wide FISMO role, which is the domain naming. So this is really important. I want to change it. Yes, okay, it transferred successfully, which is great. So I'm going to close this. And the last one is the schema FISMO role, which I need an additional DLL to be registered because it's not available when I open the tools from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another PowerShell and write down the following. So it's rec svr32 and schema management DLL. Okay, and it succeeded, which is great. So the next thing, I'm going to open MMC, and from here I'm going to add remove snapping, and I will add my Active Directory schema. Click OK. Now that I have my Active Directory schema, I will right click on it, Operations Master, and I will move the Schema Master FISMO role. So change. Okay, so in order for me to move the Operations Master, I need to be connected on DC01. So I'm going to change Active Directory Domain Controller, and I'm going to switch to 01. Okay, and it's saying that it's currently not connected to the schema, but I'm going to, now you can see that I'm going to transfer to the 01 and click change. Okay, okay, it successfully transferred. So the next thing that I want to do, let me see if I still have, no, I don't have it. So yep, netdom query FISMO and confirm that all my FISMO roles are currently residing on NLB DC01. Now that it returned the proper FISMO roles output, I can see and I can confirm that everything has been transferred to my NLB DC01. So the next thing that I want to do actually is I can proceed with removing the old 2008 R2 domain controller. So I'm going to switch to this domain controller and demote it. Before I switch to my first domain controller and demote it, I just want to show you something which is a really good example where you need to check and confirm that everything has been modified to acknowledge the new domain controller. And you can see that on my new domain controller, the preferred DNS server is my old DC, which I'm going to change right now. So after changing this, I'll be sure that there are no issues with my DNS resolution to my clients. Another interesting thing to show you, I'm really sorry about that, but I just wanted to verify and confirm that it's working, is the functional level. So if I go now, before I demote the 2008 R2 domain controller and try to raise the functional level, it will say that I cannot raise it because there are domain controllers that are currently residing and working on this level. So I just want to confirm that after I demote the 2008 R2, I will be able to raise the functional level of the domain. Okay, now that I'm on my old domain controller, I will advise you, of course, if you moved everything from this domain controller, you can always shut it down and leave it for a day just to confirm that there are no issues that you forgot about, so you can deal with them before it's too late and you demote the domain controller. So the easy step here is just to run dc promo, and this command basically will open the Active Directory Services installation wizard, And the next thing that we need to do is remove this domain controller because it's currently a global catalog server and is used to process user logons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my new domain controller. I'm going to open Site and Services just to show you where you can remove the global the DC from being a global catalog. So if we open the properties here, we'll see that it's a global catalog, but let me go to the NTDS settings, and from here I will verify that this is DC1 and it's currently a global catalog, and I want to remove this. Okay, and basically it will take some time to replicate the changes, but I will force them and will try to run the wizard once again to see if the error would appear. So now I forced a replication and all should be fine. So let's run DC promo once again and click next, and now I don't see the error saying that the server is a global catalog. So I'm not going to delete the domain because this server is the last domain controller in the domain. This is not the last one, but I want to just demote this one. So let's click next and we'll wait for the next window to appear. And it will ask me what would be the new administrator account for this server. I'm pretty sure that the server would remain in the domain, but just in case I will create an administrator password. The server will be a member of the domain, you can see right here, and click next. And the wizard is going to start removing the or demote my old server, and it should basically be done with it. So I'm going to restart now. I'm going to switch over to my second DC, and let's see how long it will take for the settings to refresh. So if I click refresh, I can see that only the global catalog disappeared for now, but there is not an NTDS settings under my old domain controller, and basically this link should disappear as well. It should be automatically cleaned up after the full demotion is done. So now my old domain controller, which is not a domain controller anymore, is up and running once again. And of course, if you want to fully remove everything, you can go ahead and remove the Active Directory domain services and DNS server roles. And I will just leave it like that because the video is already really long, and I just want to go ahead and switch to my client computer so I can confirm that my domain is working after the demotion of my primary domain controller. So the thing is, I'm going to open System, change settings, and try to add the computer under NLB Lab, and I'm going to change the name to NLB PC01. Okay, let's see if that will be successful. Okay, it's asking for credentials, NLB Lab, and then nick. Okay, specify the password. Let's see if joining the computer to the domain will be proper and successful, and then I'm going to try to log into that computer with one of my user accounts so I can confirm that pretty much everything is working as it should after the demotion. Okay, it joined me to the NLB Lab domain, and it will say that it needs a restart, so I'm going to restart now. And I'm going to switch over to my domain controller, and we'll go to Active Directory users and computers. Open the NLB Lab, under computers, there it is, the NLB-PC01 is available now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and log in with one of my users, for example with Tom, and we'll confirm that everything is properly working. Now that the computer is up and running, once again I've managed to log in with Tom's user account. So you can see right here that my name is Tom. So I can confirm that the migration of my Active Directory from 2008 R2 to 2012 R2 is fully successful. So I'm going to check one more thing before I end the video, and this is raising the functional level. And now you can see that I have two options. I can raise the functional level to 2012 or 2012 R2, and this is available now to me. So basically this ends up my successful migration of 2008 Active Directory 2008 R2 to 2012. I hope that you'll be able to learn how to perform this action. It's really not that hard, but you need to be really careful with the Active Directory and always perform a backup on the system before you go ahead and perform such things as migrating. So once again, if you like the video, you can always share, like and subscribe to my channel. If you don't like it, you can always dislike the video and leave a comment so I will know what can be improved in the future videos. And if you have any issues, you can always ask me in the comments below, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. This was Nick from NLB Solutions. Thank you very much for viewing, and see you soon.